G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the Round 4 Stock Market video. Hope that you're all going well. Before I get right into it this week, just want to give a big shout out to all of the new members that have signed up to the channel. So we've got Rickby G, Carl Meaney, Benny Leonard and Colin Young. Thank you very much guys, it is much appreciated. And there are also a couple of other members who I'm not sure who you actually are. All I can go off is the comments and look at little symbols and badges next to your name, which obviously confirms your membership. So for the couple of people that I didn't mention that have signed up this week, please leave a comment down below and I'll make sure to give you a big shout out next week. I really do appreciate that, as I said, guys. But look, in regards to the stocky this week, some big news regarding Paddy Cripps. We were panicking a little bit, thought this may be a medium to long-term injury, but apparently, according to the coaches anyway, according to the Carlton Football Club, he may only miss the 1 week. So nothing too serious here. But again, do we trust the coaches and medical staff? I'm not too sure. We've been absolutely screwed before, but I suppose we're not dealing with GWS here. It could be a lot worse. You know, the other one's Mitch Hinge. Think it should only be a week if he misses. Still a small chance that he gets up, but there is a bloke on the bubble this week that you can bring in for someone like a Hinge, and that's Nathan O'Driscoll. Also got a teammate, Neil Erasmus. Not sure if he plays this week. Not sure if he keeps his spot, but certainly another bubble boy that we may like to select in our midfields. There's a fair bit going on this week for such an early round in the season. So I hope that you enjoy. I'll leave it there. We'll get straight into it, and we'll get on with the 500k defenders. Hope you enjoy, guys. Cheers. At the top of the list this week, a pod that I flagged in round 3 to take a close look at, and that is Jack Sinclair. Now, the most surprising thing about his game this week was the fact that his role completely changed. And this is another thing that I mentioned in the last video. If he gets pushed out of the midfield when some other blokes return, he should go back to an attacking half-back role. And this is what occurred on the weekend, albeit without any of these returning stars playing in the middle. Previous to this week was attending a very high number of CBAs, but this week played mainly at defence, gathered 35 touches and pumped out a 135. He's literally improving each week and hasn't gone under 3 figures this year. 100, 114, 116, and 135 I just mentioned. Personally, I'm highly considering as a pod. His scoring history, well, that's not on his side, but he is passing the eye test and it seems like he can score in multiple roles. So 2 thumbs up from me. Really like this selection. Stephen May, 513,800 with a 3-round average of 111. Didn't quite manage to get 100% of the kick-ins this week, but went close. 10 out of 12, a pod option if you really want to go there. Sam Doherty, now I highly recommend taking a close look at this bloke, looking every bit like a top 3 defender at the moment. Back to his glory days with a current average of 125, scores of 144, 100, 122 and 135. That means that we can't ignore him any longer, and he probably sits at the top of the list as far as premium defenders go. Now, I'd prefer to wait for him to hopefully drop after a quiet game and then jump on, as we're really paying up at the moment. But at the same time, it seems like money well spent. If you look at his break even, 78, he'll most likely go up this week if he goes anywhere near a 125. So at this stage, I really like him. I think Carlton's game style suits his SuperCoach game. 29 touches on the weekend with high efficiency after accumulating 33 touches the week before. Doc seems back in a big way, and if you're in need of a premium defender, look no further than this bloke at the moment. McGovern, highest disposal count of the year with the 22, but funnily enough, his lowest score of the year with a 92. Still a fantastic floor and a pod flying under the radar. Now, the issue with this pick is the fact that his career best average was 91 back in 2017. So that's a big reason why I'm slightly skeptical on this current 3-round average, for example, of 112. So it's a pass for me, but he could actually work out to be a really successful pod. Bailey Dale, just the 3 kick-ins. I think Daniel had the extra one this week, just chugging along there at 97. Cumming took just over 40% of the kick-ins this week. He's entrusted with those duties more often than not. But it's just one of those names where I just don't see myself bringing him into the side. Shannon Hearn, really disappointing after a red-hot start to the season. Only the 46 points at a very below par, 63% disposal efficiency. 6 clangers isn't something we normally expect from Shannon Hearn, so if you jumped on the old man as a pod, you'd be pretty concerned now. Dawson has been consistent without being fantastic. A 97, 98 and a 99, that's ultra consistent. Also got a 123 in the showdown. But now that he's had time to warm up, I think owners would be looking for just that little bit more. And Crispy bounced back with a lovely 132. Great for those who stuck fat with him. We were hoping for a big one against West Coast, and he had his highest disposal count of the year with 29, 4 tackles, 4 clearances, and used it a lot better this week. So hopefully he bucks the trend and smashes out a 100 plus score this week. Another round down and another shorty ton. Consistency at its finest, similar to Dawson, but much healthier numbers. 109, 110, 111, and 136. How's this for a kick count as well in the last 3 weeks? 29, 27, and 29. That's dead set crazy. So get him in your team when you can. Jordan Ridley, look, if you've got him, you just hold on to him for now, I think. But it's a pass for me at this stage. Someone that I'm not overly interested in. Stewart didn't play on the weekend, was out with gastro, which was a blow to owners. They would have been spewing, pun intended. Apart from that hiccup, he's been a solid selection. Richie performed really well in game 250, a stalwart of the club who's been in career best form for the past few years, and as usual, took 90% of the kick-ins, 24 disposals, and almost 800 metres gained. Scored 105, and owners would be hoping for him to average around that mark for the rest of the season. The Seagull hasn't had a fantastic start to the season, so I think at this stage we just see how he goes. Got a 3-round average of 94, break even of 148. He'll continue to leak a little bit of cash. I'd reassess him and maybe one of our first upgrade targets in our defensive line if we can start to see a little bit of form. Aaron Hall, another somewhat surprising sub 100, not the worst game we've seen from him. Zeeble playing forward, that should only help Hall. He had 75% of the kick-ins, 22 kicks in total, 3 handballs, 7 marks, but just didn't use it overly well. I think he'll bounce back, begin to climb up the ranks again for defensive averages, but if he doesn't begin to improve his scoring output in the short term, he does loom as a potentially discounted premium come our first upgrade. So don't panic as an owner, but don't rush the purchase. Just keep on your watch list for now. Luke Ryan, this bloke would be bleeding money if it wasn't for that massive 156 in his system, but now that's going out of his 3-round price cycle, and his break-even sits at 160. So apart from his 150 plus monster, nothing to write home about with a 70, 74 and a 77. And Jay-Z, a major role change that I didn't see coming, was actually a dangerous target up forward. Kicked 5 goals, the first coming from a desperate defensive act, which really did set the tone for the Roos' overall attitude on the day. But for all this effort, only the 90 points. By round 12, could have defensive forward eligibility. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k. Sitting at the top of the list this week is Heath Chapman. Now, I do owe him a big apology because I had him on the chopping block after round 2, and there are a few red flags starting to arise. So if you trade him out, I wouldn't have blamed you because I was looking to possibly make the same move myself, but circumstances meant that I ended up holding him, and really lucky that I did because all of a sudden some of those red flags are being replaced with dollar signs. We've now seen him go 100 plus in consecutive games, play consistent football from quarter to quarter, and he's having a real impact on the game. His disposal can is looking healthy, and it seems like his teammates are starting to look for him. And I think part of the reason for this is the fact that he was positioning himself really well and making good decisions about when to attack and when to offend. It really was an all-round game. He intercepted, attacked the contest hard, got on some loose balls, and I love the fact that he can win his own footy. Out of his 24 possessions, half were contested, and he also had a perfect 1-to-1 kick to handball ratio. So that negative break even, it looks really tempting for non-owners, but I think the ship has definitely sailed now. Not a player I'd jump on, but for current owners like myself, a great pod, and missing out on Bowie doesn't seem so bad now. Braden Campbell enters the stock market for the first time this year after his 110 on the weekend. A real pod, not too many owners at this stage, but that would have been wrapped with his performance over the weekend. I don't think the Seagull would be too happy with Campbell, as I think he's stealing a few of those chips playing that half-back role. 16 kicks, 5 handballs, going at over 80% efficiency, 5 tackles thrown in there as well. I don't think we jump on, certainly a pod selection, and a player of the future, but a pass for me. Mitch Hinge unfortunately went off with a hip pointer, which is disappointing for owners. May miss a week, but hopefully he can get up even as early as this week. A hold for mine, as he's displayed the ability to go 80 to 90, a really nice on-field option. If only out for one, as I said, a definite hold. If out for two, you could go down to an O'Driscoll and bank 100 odd K. But personally, I'd look to hold if you can. Demioli, from a Supercoach perspective, in career best form. Apart from his 71 in the opening round, he's turned up in every other match. A 111, a 107, and a 101 in the last three. Now that suggests that there may be something to this pick. Does he pick up where Bashahuli left off? In rounds 2 to 3, he averaged 20 disposals last week. Boost that up, got 25, 6 rebound 50s. Now, I'm a safe type of player, so not a type of pick that I'd be interested in, but based on current form, he could be a potential D6 keeper. Zach Williams, 44, 96, 107, and a lovely 135 on the weekend. That putrid 40 score is now out of his price cycle, and he's replaced that with that 130 plus score. So that's easy break even at only 42. He's not a player that I could select for obvious durability history, but with Carlton's chip around the backline mentality, there are a lot of defender points up for grabs, 31 kicks, 5 handballs over the weekend, and right on 800 metres gained. And this says he's having a positive impact on the game. 7 kick-ins is a real bonus, but even though he's on fire, I wouldn't be surprised to see him injured or suspended at any point in time. So a no for me, but could be one for the risk takers. Witherden, he's another West Coast defender that has been scoring well. A lovely kick, at times bites off more than he can chew, and that was always a frustration for Brisbane supporters, but he's shown from day one that he's got a nice ceiling. Never quite put a full season together Supercoach wise, but you never know, he may one day. 127 points on the weekend, 27 touches, 19 of those kicks, going at 85% efficiency, and 4 kick-ins as an added bonus. A solid score, but a pot on passing on myself. Justin Mcinerney, a sneaky pod selection for some at the start of the year, but things didn't quite go his way short term. Most owners would have traded him out, but he's returned to the side with a bang, scoring 127 on the weekend. An exciting type player, loves to run and carry, found the pill 30 times, used it well at 80%, and also impacted the scoreboard, kicking 1 goal, 1. Spent a little bit of time in the middle, attended 5 CBAs. He's just your typical breakout type selection. There are a few to choose from. At the Swans, you've got Mcinerney, the Lizard, even Campbell, who we mentioned before. So possibly one of those picks works out. You just need to work out which one it's actually going to be. But with Mcinerney, he's fun to watch, so it would be an entertaining player to have in your team. Riley Bonner will probably remain a pod for the entirety of the year, but needs a shout out after a massive 37 disposal game coming off half back, 12 contested possessions, 23 kicks, which is always good to see. I'm a pretty happy owner in draft. I picked him up as a free agent after round 1's got a nice role, got a decent leg on him, had a few kick-ins as well, which is always a nice little boost. And Nathan Broad, a player that no one will look to bring in, but deserves a shout for his efforts to date, averaging 111 in his last 3, and I don't think anyone would have seen this one coming. The Lizard, another Sydney player that we have in this list, seems more like a Swans team review, doesn't it? But only 70 points on the weekends, his lowest disposal count so far with 15, and only went at 66%. I think Turner was playing a lockdown role on him, which would explain his lack of influence, I think, on the game. Georgie Hewitt, a must-have in our defence this year, led the Carlton midfield in the absence of Cripps, tried to clamp down on Miller around the stoppages, and then looked to find the ball himself. 29 touches, 8 clearances, kicked a goal in the first to set up his night. There are no question marks of the pick now. He's a Carlton midfield staple, 21 out of 25 CBAs over the weekend, and becomes even more important with Cripps out of the side short term. And he's obviously shown that he can still score well without Paddy. Also a viable trade-in for Cripps if he was to miss, let's just say, 3 or 4 weeks, if you don't own him already. James Sicily putting his hand up as a top 10 defender with another really solid performance. I was thinking of starting both Sicily and Hewitt, but the risk just seemed too high. But looking back now, that would have been a pretty nice move. He's been super consistent this season with scores of 105, 84, 105, and a 113. A high floor, low ceiling type season to date. And if this continues on, he should be a fine pick. 20 disposals against the Saints, but best of all, 18 of those were effective, so made the most of every touch. Also took 40% of the kick-ins with Hardwick, his major competition for that role. I mentioned to Spills in the preseason I much preferred the Sicily selection over Ridley, as I was expecting him to play the same roles, and the price difference was about 90k, so someone you can look to bring into your side, I think, if you can maintain his current output. Jake Bowie, the time may have come to part ways with this man, depending on how aggressive you want to get. Only 11 touches and 47 points over the weekend. Just didn't seem to get involved in the game. Had a couple of moments, but that was about it. With O'Driscoll in the bubble, you could make that trade and then bank some money for another upgrade. On the other hand, you could keep the faith for another week if you think he's got a 90 in him. He's coming up against North. He has sort of done his job to date, making around 100k, but he has let you down, particularly if you trade him in after round 2 with some below par scores on field. So with injury clouds hovering around some popular players, you may be forced to hold and wait it out. But if you're a non-Cripps owner, you haven't got Hinge, for example, you may be able to afford to jump off. Adam Sard put in another nice performance over the weekend, and he now sees himself with a healthy season average of 113. I must admit, he wasn't on my radar all pre-season. One of those players I just skip by. But with Carlton's playing style, it looks like he could be a potentially viable pick along with Doherty. Certainly not a player with a highly defensive mindset, likes to get on the end of the football, use his run and carry, and seems to be cashing in at the moment. Main thing going against him is his lack of consistent scoring history. He's teased us in the past little, 4 kick-ins over the weekend, so one of those ultimate pod type selections. If you're brave enough, you could go there. Lockheed Whitfield, this was looking like an absolute disaster on the weekend. Only 9 disposals up until half-time. Had copped a couple of knocks, was hobbling around a little bit, and just before the half-time siren, he turned the ball over, gave a free kick away, gave the opposition a shot on goal, and I was just pulling out my hair. I was on 20 points and thought, well, if he can just somehow get to a 70, then we can salvage something from this game. But I don't know what happened at halftime. They must have given him a big rev up, a big boost, but he had a 16 disposal second half, went absolutely bonkers, 72 points. So extremely happy with that, the fact that he could bounce back, because it was just looking like it was going to be, as I said, an absolute train wreck. So going forward with this pick, I'm certainly holding for now. I think at the price that he's at, 466k, well, who are you going to go down to? I think most of the picks around there are pretty speculative, unless you haven't got a George Hewitt. I think he's someone that you've definitely got to have in, but I wouldn't be side-swapping to someone like a Sicily, for example, or even someone like an Adam Sard. I'll just keep the faith with Lockheed Whitfield for now, and then maybe around the buys if you've got a couple of spare trades and you may be able to upgrade him. And the next 3 blokes on the list, Daniel, Young and Houston, I wouldn't be bringing to my sides, but 83, 93 and 91 for 3-round averages. If you're looking for pods, you can select one of these 3, but nothing really appeals to me. Certainly a pass for mine. On to the defenders under 250k. At the top of the list this week, we have Nathan O'Driscoll. A stellar performance over the weekend. Would have made his grandmother really proud. Filled with emotion, the young fella reached triple figures in just his 3rd game. He was a popular preseason pick before being snubbed for selection early. He was on the bubble last week. Some astute coaches jumped on, so well done if you did. But with that 100 plus still in his system, and it will be for the next couple of weeks, there's still an easy 100k to make if he can average 60 to 65 over the next few. That deep EP is really handy. Looks like he's got natural ability to hit the scoreboard, can find the pill, although his disposal efficiency did let him down on Saturday. So definitely one I'll consider bringing in, but I won't be using just say a boost to do so. I'm not that desperate at this stage. Sam De Koning, only the 9 disposals, but 8 intercepts, 7 were contested. Just continue to let him fatten up on your bench at this stage. Wanganeen Malira, don't really like the look of him at the moment. Break even of 15, 3-rounder of 49. A little bit of cash to make, but a slow burn. Gibcus, he's a slow burn as well, but 53 for his 3-round average. 54 of his projected score with a break-even of 17 will see him go up around 16k. And Paddy McCartan, really concerned for this bloke over the weekends. We know all about his concussion issues, but looks like he got the all clear. He's ready to rock and roll this week, but I do have the caution symbol on there. If he does receive even a minor head knock, I think they'll be overly cautious and may need to spend a little bit of time on the sidelines. On to the midfielders, 500 plus. At the top of the list this week, we have the Green Machine. Looks ready to break out and explode this year. A beast of a human, thrives on the contest, a load of CBAs, and would be their first pick midfielder, I think. His lowest score of the year last week was a 92, only the 17 touches, which is slightly concerning, but it seems like his floor will be relatively high. His ceiling, as we know, is huge, already given owners a 164 and a 147. Apart from round 2, he's kicked 2 goals every match. So I'm not sure if that's sustainable, but so much to like about him. This is the week to jump on if you plan to. He's already gone up a fair bit, but he's more than capable of going a 115 plus and entering the Uber Elite. At the same time, he is a breakout contender, and things don't always pan out as we hope. He's around a similar price point to Cripps, so an easy sideways trade if you want to go there and if you believe in this man, Tom Green. Pendle's 113 season average, one of the best SuperCoach scorers of all time, staple in years past, and he's turning back the clock, enjoying his time off halfback with stints in the midfield. He's gone over 100 for 3 consecutive weeks now, averaging 24 disposals for the year. A viable option in our defensive lines if he's granted DPP next week. Baz had a really good performance over the weekend, 36 disposals, 4 tackles, attended 16 CBAs, and backed it up from his 31 disposal performance last week, also from round 1 where he had 33 against the D's. So he's been in red hot form, has Baz, missed round 2, but looks healthy again. Could be anything, this bloke. Main question is the time now? I'm not too sure. The main issue is, well, how many dogs can we have? Mcrae, Dunkley, English, Bont, Trelaw, it's just not viable to have them all, and unfortunately for Baz, he sits closer to the bottom of the list when it comes to, well, my doggy ownership priorities anyway. Could turn out to be a great pod though, and possibly one that got away. The Bond had a below average yet consistent start to the year with 2 105s and 108, but he managed to punch out his biggest score of the year with a 136, had over 30 touches, hit the scoreboard, and looked to be running pretty freely. With the doggies' relatively friendly fixture coming up, he looms as a possible Cripper replacement if you're keen to get him out. He's dropped almost 40k from his starting price. As I mentioned before, hasn't gone under the ton. North, Adelaide, Essendon, Port, Collingwood, Gold Coast and West Coast in the next 7 weeks. We haven't seen the top of his ceiling this year, but we know what he can do when he's firing. A downside to the pick may be when the buys come around. As we just mentioned with Baz, if you're already running with 2 or 3 dogs, which I know many coaches are, then it's possibly a bit of Bulldogs overkill. Another concern is if COVID runs rampant through the kennel at some stage. It's far from ideal having 3 to 4 of your primos unavailable, so someone to have a genuine think about, but at the same time there's no rush to bring him in now. Titch, finally a decent game for the first time this year, produced a score that wasn't in the 80s, 80, 82 and 86 in his first 3. It's a start and good to see, but he needs to do a whole lot more to convince me that he'll be a viable pick this year. Boak, what do you say? One of the best and most consistent scorers in the comp this year. 149, a 156, 133, and a 117 is outstanding for a man of his age. One of the few Port players that can hold their heads high and doing everything he can for his team. Possession count for the year at reads 32, 39, 28 and 35, averaging 6 tackles a game. So no signs whatsoever of slowing down. If you trust his body, I don't think there are too many reasons to doubt him. And I'll tell you what, if he goes a 120 plus again this week, I'll officially be a Boak believer. Darcy Parish, not the brightest start to the year, but he put in his best score of the season with a 121. On a really positive note, racked up 40 touches, but the negative is that this only translated into a 121. And look, when I hear a 40 disposal game, I'm thinking a 135 plus type score. We've seen the ceiling he possesses, particularly when he broke out last year. Was the hottest player in the comp for a while and went on one of the best runs that we've seen. So most likely just a matter of time until he finds his consistent form again, and one I think we can jump on when the price is right. Jack Steele, I've got the half Superman symbol there because he's not quite his best, but he's looking better every week. We've got very high expectations for Steele, which is why owners would be disappointed with his average to date, but he hasn't actually been all that bad. After his 87 in round 1, he's gone a 111, 121, and 125 last week, averaged 32 disposals in the last 2, but strangely only 3.5 tackles, which is obviously very down on his usual numbers. Had 13 just in round 2, for example. He's lost almost 50k on his starting price. Break even is achievable for a player of his talent, and if you're looking for a midfield primo to bring in for Cripps, I did mention Bont before, but still would be my number one target. He's got runs on the board, scoring's on an upwards trend, and you're also saving some cash there. Benny Keys, the pod that just keeps on giving. I'm waiting for him to slow down, and it just isn't really happening. From Brisbane reject to a premium Supercoach scorer, I'm absolutely stoked for this bloke. And Sammy Walsh will be interesting to see if his role slightly changes without Cripps, playing more on the outside, and that'll most likely limit his ceiling a little bit this year. So my plan is just to wait and see with him at this stage, but someone to keep on your watch list as an upgrade target for sure. Danger, Bears kept him relatively quiet on the weekend. No major influence on the game for the third week running. After a massive score in round 1, just hasn't really given a yelp. Unfortunately, I've got the Mr. Burns symbol on him, as it seems like his best days are behind him. Look, I'm not completely writing him off. He's a champion. I'm sure he's got some big games in him, but I think they'll just be too few and far in between. Neil, another solid game from the former Brownlow medalist. Went above my expectations given his history with Mark O'Connor, who was following him around all night. 21 out of 26 CBAs, and no surprise that O'Connor also attended 21. Great performance when he copying a tag, and he managed to get 21 contested possessions, 11 clearances, and lay 5 tackles. I think it's safe to say that this man is back to his very best and currently the number 1 averaging player in the comp. Keller Mills hitting some form and would be in more sides if it wasn't for the concerns around his Achilles. He's a gun, this bloke, and if he can stay fit, he's a very good chance to finish top 10 this year in the midfield. There's, a few of the older Sydney players, I think, that are transitioning out of roles. JPK is a prime example, and I think that Callum Mills, he's the main man in the middle now. Attended 23 out of 29 CBAs, 28 touches, 130 points against the Roos. In round 2, smashed out a 147 against Geelong, but he's also put up a 70 and an 84, which is way too low for an Uber premium. I'd want to wait and see some consistent scoring before I consider, but that Achilles still puts me off the pick slightly. Jack Mcrae, I hope you kept the faith with him and had him in your captaincy plans last week. Coming off one of his lowest scores and only gathering 1 touch in his last quarter of football, he went bang, gave us 150 plus, no wing time to speak of, CBAs, back up, his usual 30 plus touches, tackled well, kicked a goal, and didn't waste too many disposals. Absolutely fantastic, must have in your side. Jelly, a nice start, but quiet of late. Never a player that's been on my radar. History suggests something will go wrong with him at some stage of the year, and I just don't want any more headaches in my side. His scores, well, they read 116, 117, and then 81 and 89 last week. 14 out of 24 CBAs, but under 20 touches. Gave away a couple of free kicks, and if it wasn't for his goal, this could have been a sub-80 game. I'd be concerned as an owner. Not sure if he'll finish in the top 12 averaging midfielders. Ollie Wines sent some scares through the camp last week after getting him subbed out of the game, feeling dizzy and a little bit nauseous. News then came out it was a heart irregularity and he'll be missing this week. In his own words though, he's 100% back to normal, which is awesome to hear, not only from a footy perspective, but for his family, for his loved ones. An extremely low 3-round average for his potential due to some underwhelming form, and obviously getting subbed out last week. We may be forced to look for value this year, and when Ollie's back on the park, his price should begin to fall heavily and could be a cheap target for, say, our M7 spot maybe. My advice, just keep him on the watch list for now. Now, the 2 Melbourne guns in Clary and Track, poor games last week and should be at a juicy price in a couple of weeks' time, unless they go cocoa bananas. Now, it was a really strange game from Oliver. Track was the one copying most of the attention, and usually we'd assume that Clary would get off the leash, but a very below par 19 disposals, which is unheard of unless he's dealing with a hard tag, just wasn't his night. It seems like the opposition is prioritising clamping down on Petrarca this year and view him as the more dangerous player. It's going to be really interesting to see what GWS do, as they've had success in keeping Oliver quiet in the past. They made probably play it by ear, just send Ash to whoever's getting out of control. Whatever Leon decides to do, I think one of these blokes should have a lower scoring game, and whoever that is looms as a really popular upgrade target. If you own either player, I'd be hesitant to include them in your captain loops this week. I'd just cross my fingers, hope that they can get to triple figures, and just get this GWS matchup out of the way. Andy Brayshaw, one of the best young guns in the comp, possibly about to enter the uber elite scorers. Huge first 2 weeks, then quieter during the last couple, which has resulted in his break-even skyrocketing. And we do expect this because obviously his 2 big scores are now out of his 3-round price cycle. The main problem he'll face this year is having to deal with opposition taggers. They're back in fashion, it seems, and as a younger player, he's still learning how to work through that. Whenever he gets a reprieve from the tag, he just starts to dominate, finds the footy so easily. So my advice, if you're keen on Brayshaw, and this is advice that I've given on a few of these midfielders, but it's just to watch him for a couple more weeks, wait for his break-even to hopefully go down, and then just reassess then. But I think with Brayshaw, he should only get better as the year progresses. And the last premium on my list here is my boy Tuke Miller. Similar to Brayshaw, has copped some attention in the last couple. Firstly, a double from Ash and De Boer, and then Hewitt tried to shut him down around the stoppages last week. Still managed to find it 30 plus times, hit triple figures, but we're getting used to those 140 type scores, and we want to see him return to those heights. If anyone can do it, it's Tuke, hardest working player in the comp, a proud man, and he will be doing everything in his power to improve his performance this week. With Witsy tapping it down his throat, they have the potential to form one of the most dangerous double punches in the comp, so don't even think about trading him out. He will lose money in the short term, but another 150 plus is just around the corner. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k. Nick Dacos finds himself at the top of the list this week. A stellar performance on the weekend. Should have DPP by the end of the next round, and even a slight chance that he may become a defensive keeper. Should be our last upgrade anyway. Thompson Dale, aka the good Dale. We may have missed one. I shouldn't say that. Sorry, Paddy, but we may have missed one here. Did say that he was a pod to take a look at last week, but an awkward starting price coupled with the fact that we're in the opening rounds, that meant that he wasn't really a viable pick to bring in. He's got a nice role, getting CBAs, finding the footy, went up 51k last week, and looking to make around 45k this week. So a terrific cash cow. You can play him on field, DPP is an added bonus, and coming up against Adelaide and West Coast in the next 3, he can keep adding to that average. So well done if you jumped on. Angus Brayshaw, that massive score will be out of his system soon, but as you can see, still has some cash to make. If he was available as a defender or a forward, I'd take a closer look at him, but the ship has sailed and not worthy, in my opinion, of taking up one of our midfield slots. You're purchasing him as a keeper now anyway, so just don't go there, I don't think, at this stage. Jared Berry, this is so hard to describe. You know he's my favourite player. I love him to death, but as you also know, I traded him out for Paddy Cripps last week. I was cheering, then hurting at the same time whenever he got a touch. It's like still being madly in love with an ex, I think. Attended 16 out of 26 CBAs, and his major role on the night was to curb the influence of Paddy Danger. So I think he won the battle. Major concern was the fact that he was clearly playing sore. That troublesome shoulder, that was causing him grief again. And you could just see that he was in pain, but in true Jared Berry style, he soldiered on, managed to play the game out. I don't know how many jabs he received at half-time, but he looked good when he came out, and when all was said and done, he scored 96 points from 21 possessions and 5 tackles, and this was his best return for the year. Comes into this week with a break-even of 17, has already made 65k profit in the first 2 price rises, so a really solid pick at this stage, but keep an eye out for that shoulder. Horn Francis almost hit the ton on the weekend, playing big minutes in the middle, getting plenty of CBAs, looks like a 10-year player already, and take it to the bank that he'll be an uber primo in a couple of years' time. Caldwell had a good start to the season, been very consistent, basically scoring between 80 and 90 each week. Ship has sailed here though, still a decent starting pick if you went with him before round 1. Pat Lipinski, I'll just wait a week on Lip, may get DPP, really depends on where he plays this week, so if you can select him as a forward, he becomes a lot more relevant. As a mid only, it's a pass from me. Getting a decent amount of CBAs, maybe that's because Adams was out, 22 out of 28 on the weekends, but that didn't translate into a good score, only yielding the 79 points. Did he fool us with that round one score of 133? I'm not too sure. He's a hard-working player, but as I said, with Adams out last week, I was expecting him to step up and was left slightly disappointed there. Matty Rowell, talk about slightly disappointed, really disappointed with this score. Look, what's happened with this bloke? Similar to Lip, went nuts in round one and not much since. We've loved his contested game, been tackling well. We know what his strengths are, but it's his lack of outside ball. And I swear he's allergic to marking the football. Here's the season tally, and this is dead set. From round 1 to 4, this is marks. 1-0-0-1. That's it. 2 marks for the year to go with his 89 touches. Just insane. It's not through a lack of effort, I don't think, but it is concerning. He definitely needs to work on that area of his game, and if he doesn't, I'm worried that he won't be able to maintain a 100 average. I think the play is to hold for now because I do still have faith in him. Very highly owned, was looking like a bad anti-pod, but if you passed on Rowell, you'd be feeling okay. So let's just see how he goes in the short term. Luke McDonald, still under 400k. Going to be interesting to see what happens with his role moving forward, given the fact that they're trolling Jay-Z in the forward line. Look, a bit of a wait and see. I've got the binoculars there, but I don't think that he's going to be realistically entering my side. Matty Crouch, signs aren't good when we see that 3-round average and 64% time on ground next to his name. He's been a solid player in the past, but just not looking like he's going to do much damage this year. And Noah Anderson found plenty of it against the Blues, but his efficiency was pretty horrid. On to the midfielders under 250k. As you can see here, we've only got 3 different symbols: the bubble boy, the slow burn, and the chopping block. So we might go through this in a little bit of a different order. We'll start with Jackson Mead. And look, he probably doesn't deserve the slow burn as he's looking to go up 31k with a projected score of 49. But the reason why I do have the slow burn is after that bigger score is out of his system after next week, then I think that he will start to become a bit of a slow burn. The next one we've got there is Brady Hoff, 147,200, so went up a little bit last week. If you can go a 45, up 21k. Conor Mcdonald, really unfortunate score for him over the weekend, has really halted his cash gen now. Break even is well out of the negatives, 27, not even sure if he's selected to play this week. And Josh Ward, again, similar to McDonald, just a poor score over the weekend. His break even is 2 points higher with 29. And look, he's still making 7,500 if he can hit a 46, but certainly not good signs. Not good signs whatsoever. Lost a lot of his CBAs. I think in particular the second half of the game, they just thought, nah, bugger it, we've given you enough opportunity now, mate. Just, time for you to get out of there, give someone else a crack. And that's not a good sign, I don't think, for Josh Ward. So a slow burn, possibly on the chopping block. It's just a lot of hope with this pick at the moment. On the chopping blocks, we do have Dylan Stevens. Now, this is just a potential chopping block, just a potential if he doesn't get up and play this week. He could hold on to him because he certainly has more money to make. But when will he come back into the side? If he's not named this week, then you're taking a little bit of a gamble, aren't you, at this stage? The next one is Finn McGuinness. Well, if you look at that projected score as compared to his break-even, it's actually in the red. So, according to that, he's actually looking to lose money this week. Now, I'm not saying he'll definitely go a 38. May pull a 50 out of the bag and actually go up a couple of thousand. But at this stage, looking like a trade-out option. And then we've got 3 bubble boys. Jed Mckenty, not too sure how you say that, but he's a mid-forward. Negative break-even of 3, looking to go up around 11k this week. I believe he was the sub in his first game, so maybe a little bit more value there than what you actually, what you can see on the screen. Reef McGuinness, not a huge fan of bringing him in. 2-round average of 41, negative break-even of 9, but look, if we need to bring a rookie in this week, I'd probably pay up for Erasmus, who we see at the top here. Just got better scoring potential. I think contested beast. Junior numbers were absolutely off the chart. So he's got a negative break-even of 30 now, looking to rise about 42k. Will he keep his spot in the side? Brody's playing really well. Brayshaw, we know he's a staple. Well, Tucker's out for a little while. Fife's not coming in anytime soon. Not too sure what their plan is around Monday, so he could be an option if you are looking to bring in a midfielder. It could be a big decision Erasmus or O'Driscoll? Yeah, completely up to you, but looking at junior numbers, Erasmus seems like he's going to be a pretty solid selection. On to the rucks, and the man up the top, Braden Bruce. Unfortunately, I have had to put the Muppet symbol on him this week. Why is that? Well, he's done himself an naughty, obviously, and got himself suspended, but he has looked terrific in the first couple of weeks. Did actually beat Darcy on the weekend, and there's a lot to like about Braden Bruce. Now, what's not to like? Well, it's that durability. We're always worried that he could go down at any time. It's a GWS merry-go-round, and it's probably silly things like this getting self-suspended, but at the same time, we just can't ignore that negative 91 break even. So I think that he's close to a must-have, just as that moneymaker, cash cow type, because he will skyrocket in price and make 150k in the blink of an eye, this bloke. So we'll probably have more of a discussion next week, but certainly think that he will be a must trade in for us. Huey Dixon now, unfortunately, news has come through that Nick Nat will be missing an extended period of football with a knee injury. Poor old West Coast, a year from hell so far, and things aren't looking much rosier, but this means good things for Hugh Dixon's job security. Best score of the year so far with 96, and it's come at a great time as this score will be in his system for the next two price rises. Looking lovely, that break even. It's a negative 60, and short term, he will be a great money maker. So let's just say with some added responsibility with Nick Nat going down, and we peg him for an average of 65 over the next 2 weeks, that will actually be enough for him to make over 150k for us so far, which is brilliant and a bit of a pleasant surprise. On the weekend, he was beaten by a better opponent in Grundy in the ruck, but it was his repeat efforts, his pressure, put on 4 tackles, and just the ability to provide a genuine contest that I think anyway was the most impressive aspect of his game. So 10 contested possessions out of his total of 16 was handy and had a big last quarter. So as owners, we're absolutely wrapped with this bloke in our teams. Jack Hayes, well, obviously didn't play last week, but there is a bit of a silver lining here with Paddy getting himself suspended. So I think he certainly comes back on the team this week on a negative break-even of 15. So he's got a projected score there of 84. Who knows? He could certainly go that. If he does, he rises another 45k, which is going to be really, really handy for our cash gen. My man, Jared Witts. The pain of not owning Gawn was eased on Sunday when this beautiful giant man mountain dominated against DeConning, went above and beyond expectations, almost matching Maxi's monster, and as an owner, it really was a sight to behold. Had 18 hitouts to advantage, 11 contested possessions, a couple of tackles, 6 clearances. He really was having his way with the opposition. He did cop some sort of a knock in the third term, looked a little bit sore for the rest of the game, and it seemed like he had his hands on his knees during every pause in the game, but he was obviously okay, played on. Now, you've missed the boat on trading him in, but if you are a current owner, expect a decent price rise in the next couple of weeks. Timmy English now, I really like this bloke. 96 points on the weekend, not great, but solid enough. In the first 4 rounds of the season, he's averaged 22 disposals with 22 hitouts, 6 clearances, 7 marks, and half a goal. So nice stats for a ruckman, apart from the lack of hitouts, which obviously isn't his strength. You know, Steph's been playing well in the seconds, which is a slight concern. But if Timmy continues to play at R1, then he seems every chance to be locked for a top 6 forward average. Now, he's obviously here in the rucks, but having that DPP status is extremely handy. So I love him as a pick, and if you are going to go really aggressive and trade out Paddy Cripps this week, you could use some DPP and get this bloke in because they're at a pretty similar price point and you're getting most likely a top 6 forward. Luke Jackson, a great game from him after a poor performance last week. Not a heap of hitouts, but kicked a goal, also laid 6 tackles, which boosted his score. Melbourne are going to need to pay this bloke big coin to stay, and if for some reason he finds himself another club next year, which I doubt, I'd have no hesitation in selecting him. Probably a battle between him and English at the moment as the number 1 ruck forward DPP option. Now, Big Maxi, he's done his best to punish those who trade him out before the price rises, and he made it clear to everyone that his high ceiling still exists, and it must be said that he was playing against extremely weak opposition. Lycett's shoulder, that was absolutely buggered, and with so many big port men currently down, he cashed in, on the hitouts, on the aerial contest. Just a really complete all-round performance from Maxi, and signs looking good against a Bruceless Giants this week. I can see another big scoring coming. Rob, coming off a good game last week, couldn't back it up unfortunately though. Draper and Phillips worked him over pretty well. 8 possessions at 50% meant that he only gave owners a score of 61. Nick Nat, as we mentioned, will be missing for 2 to 3 months, I think it is, with a knee injury, so time to sell there. Brody Grundy we've all got. Good to see he's hitting a little bit of form, I suppose. Rowan Marshall, my advice was to jump off last week, as I didn't see a lot of positive signs for the pick moving forward. Lost 42k last week, and a total of 73k for the season, only the 14 out of 34 CBAs, and we all knew this would happen with Ryder back on the side. Possibly a small reprieve is the fact that Ryder is suspended, but it's only very short term. Probably just a hold for now, at least for the next 2 weeks while Ryder's out, or else you just got to accept the cash loss and move him out. A big Sean Darcy, a man I was very close to starting, but just couldn't because of his durability risk. To be blunt, he lost the ruck battle against Bruce and was simply outgunned with an average of 72 and a whopping break-even of 235. I've got the exclamation mark there. It's now or never with this pick. Either get out this week or strap yourself in for the ride and keep the faith. Look, I suppose you selected him for a reason, but obviously it's going nowhere near as well as what you were hoping it was going to go for. So those of us running a mid-pricer or a rookie at R2, he's certainly one to firmly put on your watch list, because he's got the ability on his good day to pump out some astronomical scores. On to the forwards, 500k plus. Timmy Taranto is at the top of the list this week. I must admit, I underestimated what this bloke could do without Toby in the side, and he's had a great season to date, averaging 110, coming off 121. There's a lot to like because he's finding enough the footy, disposal counts of 28, 27, 36 and 32. He's averaging a goal a game, 5 tackles, so some all-round performances from the Tarantula, and could be a bit of a pod Cripps trade-in if you're going to be really aggressive there. Not too sure, but I want him in my team at some stage, looking to be sooner rather than later. Isaac Heaney, I'm a very happy owner, and I was hoping that he would go off this week with a 120 plus type score, and he delivered with a 131. So I was on around 50 points at halftime, 6 touches, but 7 tackles really helped to boost his score. And at the end of the day, had 17 disposals, 11 tackles, and did kick 2 goals. So was spending a fair bit of time around the ball, but when Buddy went down, he was set forward and did kick a couple in the last, including the sealer, which I think he got some pretty nice scaling for, which is always handy as well. So really happy with Isaac's game, and in the next couple of weeks, does have a friendly fixture. Looking forward to owning him then as well. Josh Dunkley, the butcher this week, and left a really nice score at the door. Had 37 touches, but just didn't use it well. Massive differential in his tackle count from last week. Went from 11 to 1, so that was a bit of an odd one. Coming up against North this week, I'm expecting a 110 plus. And Mitch Duncan, we may need to look for value this year, and if he can string together some decent football, we should be able to pick him up at a discount later on. But if you're a current owner, there's definitely some warning signs here. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k, and the man up the top, Willie Rioli, 283,100, has a negative break-even of 40 to go along with his 3-round average of 87. So if he hits an 82, he's got a projected rise of 54,300. But look, personally, I think that the ship may have already sailed. I may be going early on this, but look, I worry about his consistency, the way West Coast are going this year. A lot of question marks there. And you could say, on the other hand, that this means that Rioli may have even more responsibility. He'll need to step up more, and the expectations are even higher on him. But remember, he has just come back into the AFL system after a long time off, so I'm just not overly sold with the pick. And as I said last week, I just think that there are some better options. Will Brodie, a career best game over the weekend with 37 touches and a score of 135. Plenty of those were contested, 6 clearances, a couple of goal assists and 5 tackles. Really has stepped up in the absence of some bigger names at the Dockers, and what looked like a salary dump has turned into a very beneficial transaction for Freo. He's looking good to get to at least 450k at this rate, and if he actually keeps the role, the keeper tag is being thrown out there. Now, a risky trade-in if you're looking to bring him in, and you've possibly missed the boat here, but scores of 76, 101, 90, and a 135, that's decent for the price. His points per minute are crazy, and his TOG is actually going up. On the weekend, it was 73%. The next two blokes, Gresham and Naish, they've had really good years to date, particularly Naish, 290,100 with a 3-round average of 84, one of only 4 Eagles I think it is to play every game for the club so far this year. Break even of 8. If he can hit a projected score of 79, he's going to go up another 31k, but unfortunately with both of these picks, I think the ship has already sailed. Josh Shelley, the talented man, he hit back with a 3-goal performance this week, almost managed to get his team over the line. We've seen 2 stellar performances and 2 average performances this season, which is exactly what we expected with this pick. Seems to be the perfect F7 type, where hopefully he can loop and take a big score if he fires. It was looking dicey last week, and I know some people jumped off, but he's a definite hold for now. See how he goes during the next 2 weeks, whilst his 100+ score is still in his system, and then we'll reassess whether or not he's a keep or trade out then. Cogs, we're seeing the good, the bad, the ugly this year, and unfortunately, this was more towards the ugly side of things. Hold for now. Big score is still in his price cycle. Hugo Boss, a lowish break even at 27, but looks like Rioli is outshining him this year. Talented type player, and I must admit, I love a good mullet, but one I think that we pass on at this stage. And Charlie Curnow scored a 70 over the weekend, which is around my predicted average for him this year. As I mentioned with Tommy Hawkins, key forwards look $1 million 1 week, then look like pocket change the next. So very talented player, and look, my hope for him is he can just stay in the park and play some good footy this year for the Blues. Tom Lynch, his best game in a while now. Now, I'm going to keep this one pretty short and simple. Tom Lynch is a trap. Don't get sucked in by his price or high score last week. Don't even let him enter your thinking. Hard pass and plenty of NDHP about the pick. Now, Tristan Cherry, been a great selection for us so far, but this was by far his worst game to date. Great first quarter, a lot of hit-outs, but only 2 to advantage. Kicked a goal, celebrated hard. Everything was looking hunky-dory then. Unfortunately, didn't add to his scoring in the next 2 quarters. Unsighted in the second, things just didn't go his way, and then copped a knock in the third and spent a lot of time off the ground getting that assessed. Came back on, went back off again when the wound opened up, so a frustrating game for the big man. Still made some nice profit, and I think it's a given that he's going to be gifted DPP status in round 6, so an easy hold and still a fair bit of coin to make, I think, on the pick. Dylan Moore, I know nobody's going to pick him, but have to give him some respect for chugging along quietly this year for a 101 3-round average. Really underrated player. Tommy Hawkins. Now, I actually did a bit of research about Tommy on the weekend. I do have some personal information about him. So his favourite song is Push It by Salt and Pepper. Favourite lolly, a push pop. And the thing that frustrates him the most is opening doors, as he always seems to push them, not pull. But look, back to SuperCoach. Look, when push comes to shove, I think this is what we'll see. You know, some absolute rippers and then some stinkers thrown in there as well. Just life for key forward in SuperCoach, and the Tomahawk roller coaster reached great heights this week, and it's anyone's guess how he scores next week. And look, I'm only joking, Tommy. Good game, mate. Little bit salty as a Brisbane supporter, though. And speaking of Brisbane, one of my favourite Lions players, Zach the Rat Bailey, he came back down to earth after a huge game against the Roos last week. I love him, but still too inconsistent for a SuperCoach pick. Jordan De Goey, who returned this week after taking a forced break through suspension. I think the Pies missed him last week, so he'll be a welcome return. A wait and see from me, but does have the potential to finish in the top 8 forwards for average. Treloar, only the 80 points this week, lowest disposal count for the year with 24. Didn't lay a tackle. Think we've got better options available. And last man in this range is Zach Butters. So from a SuperCoach perspective, he's gone from hero to villain in the matter of 2 weeks. My mate Brent, you hear a lot about Brent in these videos, I know, but he must be Nostradamus because he actually traded him out for Heaney before this week, and short term that seems to be a stellar move, so nice job there, bloke. But what do we do with Zach? Well, firstly, he's playing sore, received a couple of knocks in the last 2 games, isn't moving as well as he could be. The eye test revealed to me that he wasn't his zippy, maniac type self, just wasn't attacking each contest with that, kamikaze style that we expect to see from him. Like a buzz, like a bite, you know what I mean? But he's been spending some time in the middle attended 8 out of 18 CBAs over the weekend, but also probably spending a little bit too much time forward for my liking anyway. So hopefully he's feeling a little bit fitter this week. You know, his body's feeling okay, not as sore as the last couple, and he recovers well. Hopefully they chuck him in the middle and we'll get to see some nice scores again from this man. And I have not lost hope that he can finish in the top 8 forwards from here. And we'll finish off with the forwards under 250k. At the top of the list, Nick Martin. It's head-scratching stuff as to why it's taken so long for this bloke to be on an AFL list. A natural footballer, has a knack for finding the ball, smart player, generally used it well most of the time, has already shown an ability to kick goals, a lovely bag on debut as we know. And in all honesty, if you don't have him for some unknown reason, I think you can still bring him in. He's going to shoot up again the coming weeks, and such a great on-field option at F6. Lockie Galan kicked a goal on the weekend, didn't do much else. Obviously a void now. Maybe a player for the future, but not sure if he holds his spot. Wanganeen, easy pass, just the 3 touches, 3 tackles for 20 points. And Corey Durden missed last week due to health and safety protocols. Actually provided a handy loophole for some, but he'll return this week, which will be nice for owners. I like the look of him as a player, and if you got him, just hold him, and hopefully he'll go up again this week. So that's it from me, guys. All the best of luck with your trade-ins or trade-outs this week, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.